Which brings us to our fourth match of the day here now. We just had our match of the day in the books with Kalento, a 2-0 score over Bunny Hopper. And now we got Swidz versus Casie. And this is a pretty critical match for these two, as Division B is really stacked in those middling results. I think it's like 2 through 7 are all in troublesome spots when it comes to their record, and just a couple of different matches can make all the difference in the world. So we can start taking a look at the deck lists. We have ourselves a mirror match of classes, but very much, I think, in the exact way this time instead of in any debate whatsoever. So let's take a look at Swidz and see where he's sitting right now. It's the H1O Rogue, as I have dubbed it this week. One Sea Giant. One Sea Giant, very popular this week.
Yeah, very, very popular. And it's kind of interesting to see multiple players just reach the same conclusion, at least in some cases, autonomously of each other. You know, some of these players will have conferred and practiced together or whatever, but the range of players and, you know, groups and cliques is just too wide for it. They all have been practicing together and come to the same conclusion, especially because alongside that idea of one Sea Giant, there's still an enormous amount of disagreement around the rest of the deck, like 2 Eviscerates being played in Swidz deck. We saw 1 being played by Kalento, and so on and so forth. Spirit the Shark, Waggle Pick, Myra's Unstable Element, you know, all of these coming in as well as to whether they're being played. It's still, Rogue hasn't, for me, settled since the nerf. And that's to be expected because they got blasted with nerfs.
Yeah.
Like, they got absolutely hammered.
That's right. Now you know how Druid players feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you like it when you lose mana in every aspect? Important to note, Swidz does not have the Vendetta package in his deck. He's not playing Burgle, which is why the additional burn is coming in. So you take a look over at Casie's deck here. It's, again, the H1O Rogue, you know, dubbing that because of the Spirit of the Shark Sea Giant that Hunter Ace, I think, had inspired. But with the Vendetta package, you lose room for those burn spells.
You do. You could flip that on its head and say when you put in all those burn spells, you lose room for just tempo minions in the mid-game. Just things to play, which, you know, Swidz does not have access to. So, yeah, that'd be interesting to see because no Eviscerates in Casie's deck, facing down 2 in Swidz. Very, very different ways of going at it, and also no Myras being found in Casie's deck either.
Yeah, Myras, I definitely think, took the biggest incidental hit from the Rogue nerfs that took place, as you just lost a lot of ability to play more stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you look at how the increase on Raiding Party and Preparation both worked. Those were like the bread and butter style cards for a Myra's deck. You thinned out all of the minions in your deck that you were going to play early, and then you drew the rest of your deck, which was basically burn spells.
Yeah, and it's also, back in the days of Raiding Party Rogue, when you played Myra's Unstable Element, because you'd naturally drawn so many cards through Raiding Party and whatever else, you'd often be, you know, filling your hand up with 10 cards from a deck that had 13 to 14 cards remaining in it. So when you're saying, okay, I need to Myra's and get my Leroy here, I need to Myra's and get my second Waggle Pick, my Shadow Step, like whatever the out was that you're looking to get from your Myra's, you hit it so consistently because your incidental card draw just drew through so much of the rest of your deck anyway.
It's an excellent point.
There he is. See that handsome, glowing face.
That's a natural glow. It's not the lighting.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that's a fact.
Sure.
I will say that the Burgle package is probably the thing that interests me the most in Rogue Variations, because I have just found Henge Clan Burglar to be an enormously good card. You know, Vendetta's an obviously good card. Yeah, you blow up a thing for free.
Yeah.
Henge Clan Burglar is, like, surprisingly strong, and when you look at an option, and oftentimes it looks very specific, so many times there are redundancy across the board of things that will accomplish a similar styled effect.
Yeah, especially when, you know, you're just dealing with all of the cards in all of the other classes in the game that are Rogue.
It's like
the range is so huge.
You get into a weird pinch sometimes where it's like you need a specific card, and you need a miracle for it to happen.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's like, you know, a Ray of Frost, a Frost Nova, a Cone of Cold, a Frostbolt, whatever, a thing that kills a minion, a Freezing Trap, etc., etc. A lot of freezing things in there that are similar. It's just a card that packs a punch because it is threatening and at the same time gives you value.
Right.
How much more can you ask for out of a card?
I do find it interesting because I would argue most of the time, Scarlet Crusader, pretty decent roll off his 1/1, by the way. I would argue most of the time that Discover from a smaller pool is A, better, like more powerful, and C, A and C, what? And B, healthier for the game, just in terms of, you know, being a random effect, but there's a calculable range, right?
Yeah.
But it's weird, because I think you raise a good point with Henchclan Burglar, even though it's an enormous pool to discover from, most classes have a card that's like roughly equivalent to Frostbolt, for example,
yeah.
right? Like it can be Wrath or whatever else that can come from other classes that does a similar thing. Just a relatively cheap card that deals a low amount of damage to kill a minion. So it's interesting that there is all that redundancy that comes into play with Henchclan Burglar.
Nothing quite like Duel.
No, that is somewhat unique.
That, to me, is why it has a little purple gem in the middle.
It's also just such weird card text. I feel like Hearthstone's card text is actually mostly very well executed, but just summon a minion from each deck, they fight. Like, what does that mean?
It means that you summon a minion from each deck, and then they fight.
Yeah, no, I understand. Obviously, me with lots of Hearthstone experience can read that card and through context divine what that means.
I love that card. Duel!
All right.
Fight, fight, fight. I'm waiting for that to be the next board clear spell. It's just an identical duplicate of Mass Hysteria, but it's just called Fight, Fight, Fight with 3 exclamation points. Fight, Fight, Fight is the warrior version of it, of course.
Yes. Yeah, Scarlet Crusader has ended up being very annoying.
There's one thing I know Casie understands. It's when you take the lead and when to deal damage. He's so aggressive with just about every deck he plays, it seems like.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Choose soon.
I think the statement that like knows when to be aggressive and take the lead, I think that's a universally self-evident statement about most top Hearthstone players. I think that is a key skill that all of them have to execute. I think the difference with Casie is that he can force those situations in places that other players
This guy's toast.
I think that's well said. Swinging game back and forth, and it looks like Casie is probably the first one to actually break serve here. Swidz doesn't necessarily have a clean turn.
And this is honestly my experience with Rogue. I played a ton of Raiding Party Rogue because I am a scumbag and I enjoy playing the best decks in the game. It's just kind of my philosophy with competitive games, right? Like, why handicap yourself by not using the best tools? Right? Like, if I want to build a shed out of wood, I'm going to use a hammer. I'm not going to use a frying pan.
There are rules to warfare.
Yes.
There's not.
No, there are rules. It's do everything you can to win. That is the rule.
Okay. I was referring kind of like to the old, British
No,
rules.
I understand. So, I played a ton of Raiding Party Rogue when it was the best deck in the game. Now these various versions, they all seem to hit this point in various matches, in various draw iterations, or however you want to describe it, where the hand's just awkward. And that didn't really happen with Raiding Party Rogue. And I think that's what is so different now than it used to be, is that Raiding Party Rogue beforehand, before the nerf, always had smooth options, just with the available cards that they had to them.
So you can get the Sea Giant down to 3 mana with the Faceless and the Shadow Step. I don't think that's his interest right now because Casie just made a bunch of lackeys. And so I think you're much more interested in finding a way to contain board pressure.
So if you play both of the Faceless Lackeys now, the Sea Giant goes down to 3, and you have 2 mana remaining.
Yeah, that's awkward. I guess
But
you
could
do
then
the same
still
thing.
Shadow Step, yeah.
Yeah, you probably do that then.
So many options.
I wonder whether Swidz has turned this down, or whether he has just run out of time to calculate it and is doing something else instead.
Oh, yeah, could he still technically do it?
Oh! Abort.
Come back, Novice! Come back! We need you!
It's dangerous out there.
Yeah, and I think it's wise for him to play the second Faceless Lackey here so that way he does not lose tempo in the event that Casie can efficiently handle the Doomsayer.
Oh, yeah, that's smart.
However,
Yeah, that
there
is
is a
smart.
major kicker with the Hench Clan Burglar and the Soul of the Forest that was
Yes.
picked up. Casie is about to take a massive lead.
Yes. That was actually very, very smart recognition from Swidz in a very tough position where the rope was burning and he had the unexpected outcome of the Doomsayer to recognize that he did have to play for some amount of tempo. But yeah, Soul of the Forest is one of those scenarios. Like I said, it's why I made the argument earlier of like, you know, small pool discover, kind of healthy to play around, right? Like magic trick, there's 20 spells. You know the odds of things happening, you can play around them. Hench Clan Burglar, sometimes they just have Soul of the Forest and you lose to that. It's a bad feeling.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just get got. And I think this is a get got scenario. There's just too much damage on the backswing.
Yeah. It is a good job, however, that Swidz did not just like frantically panic out his Sea Giant turn that we were talking about last turn, because that Doomsayer would have come down and he would have been in the middle of doing all the actions that he needed to engineer his Sea Giant. And that would have been even more disastrous for him.
So crazy to me that that Soul of the Forest Casie took. You know, he's intending like, maybe I'll get a turn when I have some minions down. I get to Soul of the Forest, then trade.
No. He was thinking, when my opponent plays Faceless Lackey and gets a Doomsayer, I'm just going to blow him out of the game.
Great anticipation from Casie.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just know. Yeah, and I think Swidz has fought about as hard as he can, but it's not going to happen this game. There's 14 rearing and ready to go for Casie.
Yep.
So he's going to take a 1-0 lead. And that's just it just bees that way sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes Rogue just Soul of the Forests into your Doomsayer.
Yeah. Sometimes you unintentionally play Doomsayer. Casie going in too. He's like, by the way, still had all these.
Casie, please. This is fine. According to the imaginary rulebook, which I don't care about, he showed lethal already, right? Like,
yes.
At that point, Swidz knows he is dead, so he is free to concede. So at that point, you can mess around and do whatever you want because you've given your opponent.
You've demonstrated lethal.
Yeah, that is apparently the rule that people subscribe to, although I would argue the actual rule is don't be so precious, it's a card game. They're just having fun. There are many more important things in life to worry about.
It's a true story. I think a lot of it depends on like the momentum of a game or like what the relationship is like. Like I think the closer you are, the more likely you are to be able to just absolutely torture your opponent and get away with it in a laughing manner.
Yes.
If you don't know your opponent, show them lethal.
Yeah.
Make a new friend.
It's hard for me because, you know, I come from fighting games as my competitive game background where you know, like if I showed you some of the stuff that was just considered fair game in fighting games in terms of BMing your opponent, like your hair would stand on end.
Can you give me an example and
I
go to a break with it?
What? Just there's a demonstration? No, because it's not appropriate for a family broadcast like we have for Hearthstone.
Well, I'm just going to say something like, well, get wrecked. We're going to a break, so y'all have to wait. You don't have an option in it. And I'm glad you don't have an option. When we come back, it's game 2 of Casie taking on Swidz. Swidz dropped the first game, and we'll find out if he can come back in our 4th match of the day.
My name is James Kostasich. My handle is Firebat. My username is based off the StarCraft player Firebat Hero. I was a fan of him and watched him on Twitch early on in his career, and then just named myself Firebat because I thought it was cool. Something about me that people don't know, I really hate spending money. I try and save it whenever I can. I recently learned how to repair a dishwasher so that I didn't have to buy a new dishwasher. I like doing stuff like that. I get a really good sense of accomplishment and pride whenever I'm able to salvage something. My favorite Hearthstone Esports memory is winning the 2014 World Championship. That was pretty tough to beat, but I'm hoping that one day I can beat that memory. Being in Grandmasters, to me, means that I get another chance to prove myself and show that 2014 wasn't a fluke, and that I am still here to play. I mean, I love playing against my own region because I get to play against a lot of my friends, which is always like really fun and entertaining, and there's so many different mind games. But at the same time, I'd really love to play against Europe and really knock them down a few pegs because they're so cocky all the time. I look forward to winning the most and losing the least. I definitely don't want to lose, and I definitely want to win, so it's really simple.
Hello, my name is Kong Shu. My handle is StrifeCrow. I think my original name was just like Strife. I think I just stole it from someone else that I saw online at the time when I was like 10. One of my favorite esports memory, it was like a dream hack. I ended up having like this like epic, like I don't even know how long, this game against Klento eventually beat me in that game, but I kind of brought the mage to the tournament, not as like, say I thought it was like the best thing ever, but because I just wanted to like show people I could destroy everyone with my kind of like troll deck. The thing I'm most looking forward to in Grandmasters is kind of the dynamic, because I've never really had this like league kind of dynamic in the past. You have 2 matchups a week, and you can kind of like target them. You know, you can start making spreadsheets, see what they play, see what decks are good against the decks that they play. You can even kind of play some mind games like that. I think my play is unique in the sense that I'm very like technical. I don't play a lot on intuition as much. Like I really like to have my thoughts and game plans planned out and go from there. My personal goals this year is kind of to get back into Hearthstone. Because I took such a long break, I feel like I'm finally refreshed and ready to go. So that's one thing I'm just looking forward to get like that motivation back.
Just got to look at Firebat and StrifeCrow, who are playing in the 3rd match of Americas later today, and that is a nice blast from the past for you. Some 2014 dominance that took place. StrifeCrow, one of the most winning players of all time, and Firebat, the 2014 world champion. I'm Matt Admirable, and joining me is Soddle.
Hi.
And that is funny. I've never been on the receiving end of that before. How does DJ not laugh when that happens? That is weird. Casie picked up game number 1 in this one.
You just
go ahead, please.
Yeah, both players will be most likely again sticking on their primary decks because rogues tend to build their lineup with secondary and tertiary decks built for mage and warrior respectively to make sure they can deal with those matchups effectively. That's kind of why you're bringing the deck to the tournament, to be looking to have good primary matchups against the majority of the kind of tier 3 decks, I guess, and then you dedicate your 2 additional decks to deal with the 2 remaining tier 1 decks. But Swidz definitely suffered a bad beat in that first game. It's going to be a matter of regaining composure from his side. You've got to not let that kind of thing get on top of you. You've got to just say, well, if I feel like I made the right play that game, I have to make that same play again. If that situation comes up, I can't just be scared of Doomsayer. I can't just, be results oriented and think that the things that are happening are going to continue to happen. That is a natural human fallacy that we all fall into. We expect things to remain the same. That is our default position as a race. It's very weird. Sorry, that got unnecessarily philosophical.
Well, I'm okay with that. Yeah. I get unnecessarily philosophical about every 30 seconds. Perhaps you have listened to me talk. Ever.
I try to avoid it.
Well, I don't blame you, but...
Dagger swing from Swidz with no 3-drop in hand, although he does have 2-drop, 1-drop potential to fulfill that 3 curve. Casie, Dagger, no swing with much more likely ways to spend his mana currently being present in hand.
Largely due to the matchup dynamic, where Swid's deck is much more damage focused. And
also true. Yep.
And he already has Waggle Pick, so he anticipates playing Waggle Pick pretty early this game and full steam ahead. And so for Casie, because he doesn't have that damage dynamic, it is much more about the rumble in the jungle and try to get the board at any cost.
Yeah. And again, security in Waggle Pick. You are very likely to see Waggle Pick equipped early, and then you are free to kind of pick your spot with that Waggle Pick from the remainder of the game, because weapon destruction is not something that we are currently seeing in rogue decks being brought to specialists, to Hearthstone Grandmasters.
Looking at Evil Cable Rat post Spear to the Shark, which means he will have his work cut out for him, as Casie, facing down no pressure, is free to now coin Spear to the Shark and try to take full advantage of that threatening effect, plus the value that he's going to get on the backswing of this. So having Vendetta and having the Hench Clan Burglar right now this coin Spirit of the Shark, I think, represents a pretty enormous threat to Swidz.
It also represents, I think, a recognition of potentially what's going on with Swidz's hand. I think this is a pretty good hand read where Swidz goes equip dagger, swing dagger, just re-dagger. I think that is a potential signal that Swidz has waggle pick in hand. You know, you pointed it out, right? Swing on turn 2, he has a waggle pick in hand. That's an indicator. So anything else Casie plays gives Swidz something to do with a waggle pick this turn, whereas Spirit of the Shark does not.
Indeed. Take advantage.
There you go. 1 damage, just essentially past my turn in terms of immediate impact on the board. It's a fantastic investment for later on, but I think Casie does get paid out.
Yep.
The recognition there. Oh,
and
boy.
because Swidz
That's damage.
did not play anything to Vendetta, you are now free to generate lackeys and build a board towards your Sea Giant.
Looked like there was some debate there from Casie as to what his Shadow Step target was going to be.
Yeah, I feel like you've pretty much cashed in on the Spirit of the Shark now. Oh my.
That's heat. That is gas.
Well, let's replace that one, because that's a 5-2.
Nope.
Oh.
Yeah, I absolutely like this.
What was lost can be
Turn the Shark into something bigger.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, the Shark is the almost guaranteed waggle pick target in terms of, you know, pretend your opponent has no cards in hand. What would they swing this waggle pick at? I think Spirit of the Shark is where they're swinging it. You have the potential to protect that by using the Evolve there. Turns it into a 5-5, gets paid out.
Good point. That means Swid's in trouble. That 5-5 is not dying without a lot of attention. Ooh. This is a problem. Normally, Witchy Lackey is like actually quite poor as well. The Shark with the Evil Cable Rat just turned insane with Witchy Lackeys.
Yes. You know, many moons ago when I first discovered that when you pointed a Witchy Lackey at a Spirit of the Shark, it did still proc twice, I got very excited about my life. Like, that changes the dynamic so much that it does go 4-drop to 6-drop when you point the Lackey that way.
Uh-oh. Ouchies.
It's just silly axe. Wow. That is a weak turn in response to an incredibly powerful one from Casie.
How weird is it that he kills the 5-1 instead of the 5-2, and the Rampage ends up showing up?
That is a good point. He did kill a 5-1 instead of a 5-2.
I think it's largely for A, in case there's more Witchy Lackeys, and then B,
Backstab.
in the event that backstab becomes a relevant thing.
It's definitely not strictly wrong. We can say that much with certainty.
It actually might be close to strictly correct.
Whew. Whew.
Given the context of this situation.
Spicy.
Because if you think about it, like what one damage effects are in the deck? Like, that just basically doesn't exist. Everything is in increments of 2, and you turn off your own backstab and activate a more powerful Witchy Lackey for your opponent if you kill the 5-2 instead of the 5-1.
Sure.
Now, that being said, Swidz is still under an immense amount of pressure, and things have to go very right this game. I don't know if that's the start of very right, but that's looking pretty good.
It's something. That number's obscured on the left, so I'm going to have to count. It costs 4 now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the potential for a huge Sea Giant swing turn is not really there. I think it would be too much cost in terms of damage that you'd have to take on the backswing to be able to get a Sea Giant down this turn.
I will say that Swidz is a bit more free to take damage as a result of Casey's list as well. I mean, the life total is rapidly hit dangerous, but it's not like versus Swidz dangerous. Like, if Casey's at 14, it means much worse for him than if Swidz is at 14.
That's fair.
This guy's toast.
I'm just looking at the Sea Giant and how Casie can take advantage of it.
That's a big draw too.
This turn is massive.
That increases his reach for later on. It makes that Kobold Lackey an incredibly relevant card now.
I have a feeling Swid's entire board is going to
go
away. That just makes it easy. I hope he saves this backstab to activate the Rampage.
Yep, I'm right there with you. And I hope it matters. I hope it's required.
Well, I'm looking at Swidz' hand, and it's not. This is, you know, Casie once again in the still had all these situation.
Yeah.
This was just dominant.
So Miscreant can come down with 3 mana remaining. Witchy-Lackey then comes down with 2 mana remaining. You can find a sap. You're alive in that world.
Oh.
It's definitely not good, but you're alive.
I think you just
Trade the
gosh,
Sea Giant.
It's so bad,
That is ugly.
but I just don't think you have another option. Wait,
I-
would that make the Rampage relevant? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Is it happening? Is
Oh
it
my
happening?
gosh!
Purple? Wait, 3, 4, 5, 9. Yes! Yes, Rampage is exactly lethal if this happens.
Relevant backstab
Wait,
save
it's
for
exact
Rampage.
damage, exact
It's
mana.
exact damage.
No, don't play the waggle pick. No!
Wait, that's still exact damage. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10, 11, 12 with the Rampage.
Okay.
Still exact damage. The backstab
Yes!
Rampage is relevant. And he still has to still had all these with the extra damage from the Kobold.
Yeah, this is just strictly worse because it's mana inefficient doing it this way. That's the problem. Should have done it the Shark way.
Wow, what a weird series that was. It just like everything went wrong for Swidz. It felt like his
Yeah.
hands didn't really feel bad. It's just like they didn't feel good.
Yeah, it was just kind of a massacre. The first game, it's just, you know, Casie picked kind of a weird card off Hench Clan Burglar that just turned out to be the absolute nuts in the scenario that occurred. And then game two was that was just a mugging.
It was so good. Unfortunately, Casie is playing from a different location than normal, so he's not available for an interview, which is the same reason we did not have his camera there either. So you didn't get to see Casey's beautiful face. But he takes the series 2-0 and an important win because he now moves up to a 6-6 match score as we take a look at the standings, because in Division B, those middle spots are very quickly getting packed. And with that win from Casie, he starts to push Swidz out of that picture just a little bit more. So the next matches for Swidz, absolutely crucial. More so, I think, than the rest of the field, but all of the matches are quite close in their importance.
Yeah, it was always going to be tough from Swidz. You know, I made this comment yesterday, but it's kind of ironic how in a format called Specialist, Swidz, who is a warrior specialist, has had his fortunes basically, you know, completely reverse after he switched away and started bringing Rogue and other decks more often. But the start that he had with his Warrior, which was really through no fault of his own, he was just getting some absolute dumpster draws on his Warrior. Just kind of forced him off that, and because of that poor start, he's had so much to do in the latter half of the first season that he really needed like an impeccable record throughout to be up there with the very top.
I mean, since he's swapped over to Rogue, he has a 5-3 performance.
Yeah.
His first 4 matches with Warrior, his first series, it was like Dr. Boom was literally the 30th and the 29th or 30th card. We didn't even get to see it at that point.
Yep.
And the next week, he pretty much got hated out of his Warrior that week, in addition to getting poor draws on top of that. And then he's swapped over to Rogue since. He's stuck to about the same list and has put up a 5-3 record, which I think is much more speaking to the kind of player Swidz is than those initial couple of weeks were. And so for him, I agree. It's that rough start that's really been the difference. But that's something that we talked about early on. It's like the early weeks are not throwaway weeks. You don't just be like, I had a bad week, I'll make a comeback. It's like every single match builds in importance, because as you move to the end, you realize, wow, everyone else is trying as hard as they can. Every single one of these wins means something in the grand scheme.
Again, it's another kind of human cognitive trap, right? To feel that like when you play on week 8 and you have to win, it's a win an in-game, that was more important than any of the other games you played, and it's just obviously nonsense, right? If you'd have picked up one of those wins in week 1, then you'd be already qualified going into week 8, and it would make that game completely meaningless. Like,
Yeah, it's just
no one game is more they all matter.
That's true. It's just when it comes down to it and everything is actually on the line.
Yeah, it feels that way, but it's every single game matters.